All right, the Reds, it's the Pro View. Me, Gareth Roberts, we've got Steve Warnock in the studio again, and we've got Paul Cope. The band is back together. We're doing a Pro View. It's been a while since we've done one of these. We're going to kick it off with asking Steve about being a footballer at a training camp, because obviously Liverpool are at one right now in Marbella. Tottenham Hotspur bizarrely have chosen to stay in London, and where I'd rather be out of the two places. So, Steve, you've been on them as a professional footballer, training camps. It sounds good in theory, and you know, you're in Marbella and the sunshine and all the rest of it, but Klopp hasn't talked about there for a laugh, has he? We're preparing for the Champions League final here.
No, yeah, you go out there in a way to get away from everyone, from the likes of us, buzzing around the street every day, and you're going to win it, and that's what you've got to take away from the players, is that pressure of seeing fans all the time, because majority of the players will be in and around the city or wherever they live, and people will be asking them questions. Whereas when you take them out there in a hotel on their own, there's no one there around them, no fans pestering them, asking for stuff. And then you've got good facilities as well. You can walk out into the local town or whatever you want to do. Yeah, I think it's a very good idea. I think the one thing he's got up his sleeve, Klopp, that Pochettino doesn't have, is that he can learn from the mistakes that he made last year, which is huge. To be able to give the players, I think he gave them sort of 5 days off leading up to the camp, which I think was a big thing to let them recharge. And then you just almost come back in. It's like, well, crack on as usual and try and hope that momentum carries on again.
Is there any sort of aspect of it, and I know people don't like hearing this, fans don't like hearing this at times, but is there any aspect of it where it's a bit boring? Because you're just training, sleeping, eating right, maybe doing work on the opposition and stuff like that, obviously Tottenham in this case. And, you know, you've seen it before where certain England camps under certain managers, you know, some of the players have started to have a little bit of a moan about being bored and saying, well, we're just kicking around playing pool and darts and things like that. Is there that aspect to it?
I think you've got to look at it in a completely different way. Well, how long is it to the final now? 9 days. So what, the team been out there for 11 days. You're 11 days from greatness, aren't you? And that's the way you've got to look at it. You've got to be selfish for 11 days and go, whether I'm bored or not, this has got to be the right thing to do to win us the final. You've got to put your family aside for however long and say to them, listen, I just need this time to concentrate solely on football. Your wives, your kids, they've got to be put to the side for this period of time, because in essence you're trying to stamp your time in a legacy on a football club, to say I'm one of the great. I was part of one of the greatest teams that won the Champions League, and I'll go down in history in the club. There's not many people who can say that. So for a period of 11 days or whatever it is, it's a small sort of price to pay, isn't it?
What about sort of information-wise as well? So, you know, obviously, like if you do too much training, you get physically fatigued. You've done too much training. Mental preparation for this final. You know, we talked about it on some of the shows about, you know, you obviously be watching back the 2 games against Spurs already, be watching them against, you know, sides that play in a similar way to Liverpool and things like that. All the stuff that you'd expect, the analysts, etc., etc., etc. But how much as a player can you take in at one of these training camps? There must come a point where you're like, well, we know this now.
I don't think there'll be too much on Tottenham.
Really?
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty much a ticking over period, as in standards have got to be high. Training needs to be full tilt for the period that you're away. And it'll probably be 3 or 4 days before the final, because there could be injuries to key players in this period now. There could be illness. So he could be working on stuff. The day before, he could have 2-3 players that aren't even fit to play in the game. You don't know what's going to happen. And you can't. Everyone says, oh, you have to prepare for every situation. You do. But he won't be able to get on the plane. Or the only time he'll be able to look at his team and go, that is my team. He'll have an idea in his head now what he wants it to be. But the time he'll know is the last training session before that game. He'll go, right, everyone's fully fit. That's me group. That's me team now. And that's the only time he'll know. So he'll be able to prepare 2-3 days before, but he'll be thinking, I've got to prepare for the worst in case someone does get injured. But I think it's just a ticking over period. And the players being bang at it in training every day and setting high standards so they know that they go into the game fully ready. The difficult thing that Klopp has to manage now is, I always look at it like, the first game of the season, you're never fully sharp in a game. You'll be 60-70%. You'll get to 3-4 games in and you'll think, right, I'm nearly at my level now of where I need to be. Now, you've had 3 weeks off from the last game to this game. That's where he's got to get practice games as high as he can in a decent level. Now, you look at Tottenham and you think their cooling off period is different for them because they've lost key players. Got Harry Kane out who's been injured. They're trying to get like Wanyama back fit and people like that. If you can get them players back in that 3-week period, that's better for them to have a longer period off. I think Liverpool would have just been better just jumping into it straight away.
It's been weird that as well, isn't it? Because there's some news there today about that, in that they seem to be struggling, Liverpool, to find someone to have a friendly against. They put out some feelers.
Put a team together, won't we?
But we could do, mate, yeah. But I'm not sure what kind of opposition. I mean, you'd be all right, but
don't know about
not
that.
sure about.
You've been kind.
Yeah, very kind.
But you know, like I thought that must be a bit of a dilemma, that, because not only are you ringing up clubs who've finished and they're going, well, all the lads aren't here. Yeah. But also as well, even if you do get someone in, is there a part of the manager where he's like, well, I don't want to get someone too good and too committed, he might end up crocking some of my players. And like, you know, I think I was reading what Tottenham have been doing, and apparently they just said to a load of academy lads, well, you can't go for the summer, you've got to stay, and they're just going to play against them. It looks like Liverpool might have to do something similar. So I guess the only positive there is that both camps are going to end up in the same boat, it seems. Yeah,
it does seem like that. I think when you look at Chelsea's situation, where they've gone out to America, and look at Loftus-Cheek now, and he's ended up like he would have played in that final. Whether he started or came on, he'd have had a big impact in that game because he's been a key player for them of late. And that's the difficulty of how to juggle it. Do you go up against a team that's physical, which is in a way a good thing because you are getting tested to the full tilt, but then you look at the other side of it and you go, I don't want to lose players, and it only takes one collision, but it only takes one in training. It only takes someone to fall in the wrong way. So that'll be the difficult part, is trying to find an opposition that are worthy of giving you a decent test at what you want to do. Because what he'll be trying to do is replicate the way that Tottenham are going to set up. Now, you need people who are tactically clever enough to understand what he's trying to get you to do in that training session. I think it'll just be a case of playing against each other and trying to get it as fit and as competitive as you can. And he'll throw the usual line out, the team's not picked for the final, you've all got a chance of playing, and he's got to try and hope that the lads play to full tilt as much as they can, but they'll all be thinking the same thing in the back of their minds. I ain't getting injured for this final.
Is that weird in itself, especially with a gap like this? And I know it's a really very unusual gap, this, so you might not have had that length of time. But that psychological factor of, we've talked in the past about going through a period of time when you know you're not in the team. Like, the reality is, if you're Alberto Moreno, you know you're not even on the bench unless they change the rules to allow everyone to be on the bench. Is that difficult psychologically, or is it easier because you go, well, actually, it only takes an injury to him, so I best be at full tilt?
Well, my thing was, when we went to Champions League final, I played in the last game of the season against Villa at home, and I remember thinking, if I play well in this game, I've got every chance of making the Champions League final. And I think we had 2 weeks, I think it must have been 2 weeks, might have even been 3, the same. We didn't get any time off, we just trained every single day. But in the back of my mind was, I've got to train as well as I can in this 2-week period, not only to try and get in the squad, but also for the team to win it. Because if you're not all at the races and you're not all training to your maximum and the levels do drop, it has a negative effect on everyone else. So I think that's where your standards have to be high throughout the squad, and you've got to look at your own individual situation and think, like you're talking about Moreno there could be an injury that suddenly he is propelled into the squad and he might be needed, or he doesn't play any part in it, but he's been brilliant throughout the training process. Someone rings Jurgen Klopp and goes, what's his attitude like? Brilliant. He's been unbelievable for this 3 weeks while we've been away. He's not moaned, he's not done anything wrong. He's trained at his full levels because he knows that the team would come before him. And that person on the other end of the line, that's everything that they want to hear. So that's where you've got to look at it in every case. You can't down tools, because the other thing that Jurgen Klopp can do is get a phone call, and it might be someone that he knows in the game. You don't want to take him. And because it doesn't matter to him, because he's on a free transfer.
Yeah. How much you've touched on a little bit there, Steve, but how much do you think it's significant that Liverpool have very well, literally last season, have been here before? So, you know, Tottenham, they didn't expect, in the wildest dreams, they did not expect to be in the Champions League final. You saw the reactions on the pitch when they get the win against Ajax. You saw Moura when he watched his goals back, crying and stuff like that. It's been like an emotional journey for them. They'll be doing all the press now, they'll be doing all the media, and that'll be new to them because they haven't been there before. When they walk out into that ground and there's the music and there's the opening ceremony and there's the fans and everything else, that'll be new because it's a Champions League final. For Liverpool, there's a likely 9 players, I reckon, I looked at it the other day, that started the last Champions League final for Liverpool. So they've literally been there. They've been there, seen it and done it. How important is that?
It's important, but there's a big thing that you've not mentioned. Liverpool are favourites.
Yeah.
And suddenly they go into the game favourites, so the pressure's back on them. Last year there was no pressure on them in a way, because come from nowhere throughout the groups, and everyone was thinking, would they make the final? Probably not. I think everyone thought it'd be City, who progressed from the best English team. And then when you reach the final against Real Madrid, you have to say that you would be sort of the underdogs going into the game, and I think everyone expected that. Whereas this season now, because they made the final last season, because of the form, the improvement that they showed in the Premier League, I think they go into the game favourites, and rightly so. For Tottenham, I think it is all new to them, but you can look at it both ways then and go, well, we've got nothing to lose. I think I spoke to Kieran Trippier after the game against Ajax away, and I said, what did the manager say at half time? And he just said, listen, you're never going to get this situation again, or you might not in your career. This is an opportunity where you've just got to go out and give it your all. And if they have that attitude in the game against Liverpool, then they're a very good team, aren't they? That they're someone to be feared, and you know that they're capable of getting the result. So from Klopp, the biggest thing for me is this 3-week period, how they use that, whether they get time off, how the training is, and little things like that. Whereas Klopp and Liverpool have experienced that before, and I think that's a key thing within the 3-week period. Because
there's not going to be, I mean, Paul, me and you have talked about this before, you know, the imposter syndrome thing, where, like, you know, you sort of, and this is in any walk of life, where you're doing something, but in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I don't really belong here, and I'm going to be found out. The Liverpool players now, like, you know, the likes of Trent or someone like that, you know, it doesn't seem that long ago that he's coming out on the pitch at Old Trafford, and you're like, wow, kid from West Derby's playing at Old Trafford here. But he's going to be the first player of that age to play back-to-back Champions League finals. Surely this time he goes out and he's a bit more chest out. I belong here. I can show what I'm all about in this game. And then there's other little weird strands to this game as well, I think, in that, you know, obviously we all know what happened to Mo Salah last time. Surely this time there's part of his brain going, I'm going to show the world what I'm about this time. I think, there has to be, doesn't there? I think there's got to be all aspects of that. I think as well, I mean, I spoke to a couple of the players after the Champions League defeat, and that was one of them that hurts. When you lose a Champions League final, it's like, we've got to respond to that in the right way. We've got to bounce back. And would they thought they would have been back there this season after the group stages? Probably not. But now they've got a chance to put last year right. And for the players who are, like you say, the possible 9 players, that'll mean everything to them. To have that opportunity to put a Champions League final right in your career is just something that doesn't happen that often, unless you are at an elite club and you're sort of a Real Madrid or a Barcelona who are knocking on the door most years. Well, I think that's the thing with Liverpool, is that's how much the club's changed and how much it's moved forward. So I don't expect this to be our last Champions League under Klopp, or final anyway, sorry. I think there'll be plenty more of them to come, but I think more so for them players, it's a chance to put last year right. And I expect their approach to the game to be completely different. I think they'll approach it in
I think you'll see a different Liverpool than we saw last year in the final. I thought Liverpool respected Real Madrid probably a bit too much last year. I think this year it'll be all about Liverpool and their style of play.
Do you think there's a smaller chance of there being like a dark cloud in some of these players' minds where they're going, if we get 97 points in the league, we get to a Champions League final, and then we end up with nothing, what do we do next season?
Okay, so imagine being sat there when Vincent Kompany smashes one in and you go, we're not going to win the league. We're 3-0 down to Barcelona.
Very good
and you're
point.
thinking, we're not winning anything.
Yeah.
So now you've got the chance to win something, so you've come out that dark cloud and you go, no, we're winning this. That's the only mindset you've got to have and that you can have. I'm sure there's we spoke about it many a time on here, psychologists and things like that. The psyche in the players' head's got to be that we have to win this, we've got to win it. Not that we might not win it. No, we are going to win it, and this is the way we believe in the squad, and we will win it. I think the moment that you put doubt in your mind, there was definitely no doubt in their minds that they were going to beat Barcelona. I know we spoke about it the day of the game, and we were saying, God, how are you going to stop Barcelona scoring and all things like that? The players believed that they'd win it. Speaking to players after the game, they always thought they were capable of overturning that deficit. So there's belief within the squad, and I think once you've got that, especially with the form that Liverpool have been in this year, I think they just think they're capable of beating anyone. And when you've got that mentality, them doubts don't creep into you.
I was just going to say, because one of my concerns for the likes of Salah, for example, is he's so wants to right the wrongs of last year that it can go too far the other way, and he puts himself under too much pressure and he's snatching his shots and stuff. But when I think of that, I think of something I always hear Michael Owen say, which is for players like them, like Michael Owen always says, this is what we're here for. Yeah. Like these games are what we're here for, the best players in the world. Is that what you see when you see this team, those types of players?
Yeah, I just think as well, when you think of Salah and you talk about sort of him wanting to propel himself again, I think he'll do that. He's done it this year. He's had that pressure on his shoulders. He's had a little bit of a dip in form, whether that was from being away at the World Cup or just the pressure that got to him. But I think he thrives under that now, like being voted as one of the most influential men in the world and things like that. He's got better since he's been given that title. Yeah, it's a good point. He almost embraces being a massive figure in world football and in the world in general. For the status that he holds. I just think he's just going to step up to the plate. I think he'll just cherish it. Will he score a shed load of goals in the game? Maybe not, but he'll have a good game and he'll influence it in some way.
Listen, there's loads more content on the Anfield app previewing that big match in Madrid. We've had Jamie Carragher in here. We've had Alan Kennedy in here, we've had David Fairclough in here, there's another special guest to come, loads and loads of good stuff on the Anfield app at the moment. If you haven't checked all that out, do so, and one of the best ways to do that is via our new app. So if you don't know about the app, here's a little bit about the Anfield Apps app. So that's the Anfield Wraps app. Give that a go, give it some love, tell your mates. It's the best way to get on the Anfield Wrap. Okay, in the second half then we're gonna change tack, we're gonna change direction. Steve, want to talk about something Gareth Bale said. Obviously he's 29 now, so he's been playing professional football for a long, long time. He's done an interview there where he's talked about footballers being like robots and almost being controlled, told where you've got to be, what time you've got to be there, here's your suit, get on the bus, get off the bus, eat that, do this, do that, that type of thing. And he's basically saying it's not that enjoyable. Now, I guess that's hard to take for, people on the outside looking in going, but lads, you've got all this money and you're playing for Madrid and you've done this and you've done that and you've done the other. But is there a little bit of truth in what he's saying, or do you think it's bollocks?
I understand what he means, but that's the way it is, and that's the way. If you wanna be it's the old sort of analogy, isn't it? If you want to buy a Ferrari, you don't put diesel in it, do you? So you're exactly the same as a footballer. If you want to sort of play well, you've got to fuel up right and you've got to eat the right things. So you've got all them people behind the scenes telling you what to eat, how to drink it, or what to drink, when to drink it, what the best times are for these things to help you perform on a pitch and give you the best capacity to do well. Well, you're going to listen, aren't you? And you're going to do that. I understand what he means in the fact of people do tell you where to be and what to do and whatever, but that needs doing. Players need to be told what time to be on a bus or what do you do? Where do you all turn up?
It's
and
mad,
what time
isn't it?
to train?
What does he expect? Like, what does he think the rest of the world's doing?
I know,
like in any, because this is something we've touched on this in the past. But people, I think most people when they talk about footballers, talk about them like, is this weird thing? But ultimately, footballers are employees of a company, aren't they? And your job is to play footy for a company.
Yeah, but I think
it fascinates me.
But when you play football as a youngster, as a kid, the message doesn't go to you; it goes to your mum and dad. Yeah. Can you get like Stephen to the football pitch for 11:30? But can you arrive at 11 because we kick off at 11:30? Yeah, okay. And then your mum goes, right, you need to eat some food now because you're playing a game in 2 hours. Right, okay, mum. So you're still getting told, but you're not getting told by one person directly to, or you are, but not directly to you. It's just an indirect way of doing it when you're a kid. I just don't think you think about it as much when you're a kid. I understand what he means. Listen, the difference is when you start playing professionally and you've got people paying for tickets to come and watch you and you've got a full stadium, the pressures are different. You are going to get pressure on you, but that's why we all love the game. That's why we all go and watch the game and that's why we support the game. I think he's just having a tough time at the moment in general. He's looking for answers. Maybe he should keep them to himself a little bit and sort of carry on his way of life. I don't think he's helped himself in some ways in the fact that you're at Real Madrid, he's been there for 6 years now and he's still not learnt the language. That to me is not great in itself. So I think there's a lot of things that he's trying to make excuses for.
I think sorry, just on that point, I was just going to say, this ties in with Liverpool stuff for me because I often look at footballers and what he's saying is, in his experience, but he's played for Spurs, which is Southampton before then, and now Real Madrid. So what he's actually saying is, playing for these three clubs in these times, I felt like this. Did you ever get in your career? Because when I look at Liverpool from the outside and everything that's going on with the club and the photos and even behind the scenes footage they put on the website now, which I think is good, it looks like it's dead good fun playing for Liverpool these days. Like Klopp's a great manager and he's taken the Champions League finals and 97 points, but actually they have a good time doing it. Behind the scenes, do you have that? Because I often think that, Joe, they go away to international games together and do you have that where someone's going, do you know what, playing for Real Madrid, I know it's meant to be boss, but it's boring. And someone else going, you should come and play at our club, it's brilliant actually.
But I think you only have to look at Oxlade-Chamberlain. When he left Arsenal and he said, like, I needed to enjoy my football and enjoy the environment. I think everything at a football club comes from the manager. I think he sets the tone and that's his job in a way, is to create an environment that everyone, not only the players, but all the staff at Melwood, all the staff at Anfield, they all buy into. And they go, he's great to have around the building because he makes us feel at ease. He makes us want to come in every day. If there's a day off where you think you've got a day off and we've been told we need to be in because it'll help the team, suddenly them days off don't become a chore. They become, I'm quite happy to go in today and I don't mind going in. I think he's created that within the football club. So maybe Gareth's just having a problem with the football club that he's at, that he's not enjoying coming in every day. And whether that's because it doesn't help when you're not playing. You're not playing, you're not involved, you're not wanted. You're getting jeered by your fans. I've had that myself at clubs where I think, what do you do? Do you try and knuckle down or do you just jump at first? Well, not jump at the first sight of it, but you just think, right, I need to get out of here for my own good. And I think that's one of the things that Gareth's sort of juggling with at the moment is what's the best thing for him to do? Would he find it better at another football club? The big thing for me, though, is that if I'm a manager and I'm hearing him saying stuff like that, I'm thinking he's fell out of love with the game. Now, some managers will see that as a challenge and go, I can make him fall back in love with the game and I can give him what he wants. Other managers will say, I don't need that in my changing room.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, it's how everyone's individual, goes without saying, and sees things in different ways and different things make different people happy. And I read an interview this morning with Ronnie O'Sullivan, and I find him fascinating as a sportsman. I think he's really interesting, and the interview I read this morning was no different. And what he was saying in that was that, you know, he hasn't fell out of love with snooker, but he just doesn't want to play it as much.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to go in the World Championships now because, and when asked the reason why, he said it's not because the actual playing in them. He said it's everything else that comes with, and I don't know if you've seen it, but there's an interview he does where he can't be bothered, and he answers the questions like a robot, which is brilliant, by the way. Yeah. But it's because he says, I'm made to do those things, I'm contractually obliged to do those things. Like he was fined for not doing an interview after one of the games he played in. And he said, I just can't be bothered, I want to play snooker, I'm about playing snooker and enjoying it. And I don't enjoy being forced to answer boring questions over and over and over again. And it's like, I read it and I didn't think you're just someone throwing your toys out the pram. I actually had some sympathy for him, because it's interesting that he's launched a book about nutrition, because that's what he's now interested in. He says like, you know, he's got a bit of an addictive personality, and so he might jump from one thing to another, but he says that's why he's so good at snooker, because he's been addicted to it, and he says, I'll never not play it. But, you know, there might be something in that with Bale, maybe, where he's like, I like playing footy, because he said in the same interview, he loved playing footy as a kid, when there's no pressure, no media, no assessment, no, you know, wherever, you're just having a game of footy with your mates.
Yeah, but I think it comes again to, with Bale, it comes down to not being successful at the moment. And once you're adored by anyone, you can't wait to get out on the pitch. As soon as you have a bit of a tough time, you go into your shell, you back off and things like that. I think one of the interesting things there, we talk about Ronnie O'Sullivan and not wanting to do the press. I think it's because sometimes when you do the press, you get cast in a certain way and people think of you in a certain way. I think what Gareth Southgate did last year with England and the way he approached the press and did it in a different way, I thought it was brilliant. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be part of something that was with their 5 Live this year, where we went to St George's and we sat down like this, having a conversation with a few of the players, and suddenly it's just so much more relaxed. And you get a different personality, a different side, and they want to open up then, they want to tell you things and they want to sort of have an open conversation because you've changed the environment they're in. You stand there with a camera, big camera in the face, a microphone under the thing, and you ask them the same boring questions. I used to be the same. Get asked a question, I was thinking, oh, here we go again. It's just a boring, sort of repetitive question that you think, can you not think of anything else to come up with? But then, I suppose from a TV company's point of view, they're paying X amount of millions every year to sponsor a competition that they think, well, you should be answering questions that we ask you. So it's very difficult, isn't it, to sort of be in both parties and try and get it right. And I think some companies do get it right. I think there are people that will ask very good questions, and I think there's definitely ways of improving it. Yeah,
some of the BT Sport stuff's been good, hasn't it? You know, it's a big long programme. It's gone now because they haven't got the rights next year or whatever, and so they were saying bye after the last episode. But I really like the show where they're sitting down with ex-pros, a bit like this, really. Yeah. But in depth, getting into it and asking questions that are a little bit different. What's that like in the changing room? What's it like when your teammate does X or Y? Instead of just the same thing. Because I think that was Ronnie's point on the interview, where he answers like a robot, because he's answered those questions so many times. It was like, is it great to be at this venue? Yeah. Is he a difficult opponent? How much prep? And then he was like, yes, I have put in a lot of preparation for this, like I always do. You know what I mean? And
but imagine being a snooker player and there's a guy who's breaking on the thing and you're just sat there for like 40 minutes like that, and you're thinking, that's a lonely place, isn't it, to be sat there with your own thoughts, a guy smashing balls in left, right and centre, and you're thinking, it's a long day this. And then having to go in front of a camera, and I know it's part and parcel of it, but snooker's a tough sport, I think. It's one of the most lonely sports that you can possibly get. And I think, again...
Hugely mental, isn't it, in terms of being able to
concentrate? And that's it. I think that's probably where Ronnie's thought, mentally, I need a break from the game as well. Because it can't be easy, what they do, how they sit there all the time. Imagine you've got like problems in your private life or anything, and you sit there and you think, I've got 20 minutes to think about what's going on in my life again, and it just keeps on constantly coming up. I can't blame him for having a break, and he's fortunate that he's a big name in the game, so he can go and do a book and people will buy it and be interested in it, and he can show an interest in that until he gets bored of that and then jumps onto something else.
Well, he does. His book is about nutrition, seamless nutrition. We've never ever talked to you about nutrition, I realise, so I thought we'll do it today. So why not? So when you were a professional footballer, obviously now you're tucking into Ben and Jerry's and that and getting told off by your missus.
Yeah.
But
well, you'll understand why in a second when I answer. Go on.
But was nutrition big for you as a footballer, and was the advice that you got from nutritionists at times valuable?
I struggled when I was younger, more so at Liverpool, and then I went on loan to Coventry for a year and met a guy there, Scottish guy, Kenny. He was the fitness coach, and he just taught me how to eat, when to drink, what I needed, how I needed to sort of look after my body. And I remember coming back after my loan deal finished at Coventry, and I walked into sort of the changing room, and everyone was like, "Dale, you've changed a bit." And I'd suddenly like shed all the puppy fat, if you like, and stripped me fat off me, and I'd sort of gone a lot more defined, and body shape had completely changed. And when I was back at Liverpool, I started breaking into the team and things like that. But I'd always break down around about 60, 70 minutes with cramp. And I just thought, I'm just having one of these periods where, well, I'm either not fit enough, or I've got quite bulky legs, like big calves, like quads and hamstrings. And I was like, maybe I'm too big and I'm carrying too much weight in my legs. And I'd always suffer from it. And Paco Ayestaran used to say, no, you need to stretch more. You need to do stretches with your with weights and stuff like that. So I started doing that. Nothing improved. And I think it was one of my downfalls at Liverpool, why I actually didn't progress, was because it was almost like, well, if we pick him 70 minutes in, we're going to have to sub him because of not being fit enough. And I went to Blackburn, and they were on it straight away, and they were like, right, you need more salt in your diet, you're dehydrating, and I sweat heavily. Same again, 80 minutes, 70, 80 minutes, I'd always cramp up, and I'd always have like gels and get through the game. And then I was at, where was I at then? I got, same again at Villa, went to Derby, and I was playing against Preston away from home. And I remember I got to 70 minutes and I was cramping in my belly and everything, and I keeled over on the floor and I threw up everywhere, all over the floor. And the doctor came on the pitch, he was like, what's up, are you feeling like unwell? And I was like, I feel fine, but my belly was cramping, I'd just thrown up. And then I started to go dizzy, took me off, went into the changing rooms, threw up everywhere and got dizzy again. So he was like, right, well, do a few tests. Did a few tests, everything was fine, just like blood testing and that. And then I went to Wigan, and we'd finished the season. I was on loan, finished the season, and this lady came in and she said, right, this is what I think you should be eating at the end of the season, keep your weight down, so whatever. So I just said, can I have a word after? She was like, yeah. So pulled her, and I said, I always get cramp after 60, 70 minutes. And she was like, how long have you had it? So it's like, all my career. And she went, you've got an intolerance to something. So I was like, what? She was like, yeah, you've got an intolerance to something. She went, to guarantee it. So I was like, right, how do I go about finding out? So she said, I'll send a kit in for you. Literally, prick your finger, blood swab on the blood on the swab, send it off, and I'll give you results. So I was on holiday, and she said, I'll ring you this afternoon. So I thought, right, go up in the room on my own and have a proper conversation with her. So I'm sat there on FaceTime, I'm having an ice cream, and she goes, you're intolerant to milk and dairy. So I mean, this ice... What? Oh, no. So she went, now you can finish that one, but as soon as you've had that, you don't want to be eating any dairy products. She went, you'll notice the difference. So it'll take about 6 weeks to get out your system. And that's what I had to get back into footy. So I had 6 weeks from that day until we started back. So I knocked everything on the head: butter, milk, ice cream, whatever had dairy in it, basically. And never got cramp again.
It's mad, that,
really?
Never got it. And it's the biggest regret in my career.
I was just going to say, are you almost resentful that when you're at such a big club like Liverpool, for a start, that didn't even cross their minds. There's none of that.
It infuriates me because I used to always get to periods in a game where I might get to 70, 80 minutes and you get a winger who's not taking you on all game. Suddenly you cramp up or your legs get heavy and you go, oh, he's got past me. I remember one of them, we were playing at Villa and I scored in the game. We were playing Man City away and it was 1-0 to City. I scored the equaliser and we were going for a Champions League spot. And if we beat City, we probably would have got in the Champions League. And it got to about 70, 80 minutes. And I remember I gave a pen away and my legs were just so heavy. I cramped up about 2 minutes before it. As I went to make the tackle, cramped up again, gave a penalty away. We got beat 3 or 4-1 in the end. And I just remember thinking, like, I'm so unfit. But I wasn't, because if you put me in a running session, I'd outrun most people in the session. That's what people couldn't understand. And they were like, oh, you put it down to must be just like nerves or what you're drinking on the day. It's like putting all the stuff in a washing machine and like just mixing it all up and it's having like an effect on your stomach. But yeah, it's probably the biggest regret of my career because I always think I played at like Liverpool, Villa, Blackburn, like in the Premier League, been with England, played with England, and you look at it and you go, like, I wasn't a bad player, but I knew that last 20 minutes of games was letting me down, whether that was to a manager's perception of me thinking like, why does he keep on letting us down the last 20 minutes, or why is he always fatiguing the last 20 minutes? And I think a lot of managers would have looked at it and said like, oh, he'll cost you goals later on in a game.
So when you hung your boots up, did you absolutely smash ice cream and have loads of bowls of Frosties?
No, I still don't. Do you know what? I still don't have it.
Don't you?
No, I have dairy-free Ben and
okay.
Jerry's. Because the thing is, now, if I'd have started my career now, it'd have been looked at straight away. And that's the difference. Everywhere you look now, every supermarket you go on, there's a free-from aisle. And I'm no different. I feel better for it. I don't get I used to get headaches all the time. And I used to think it was just like the stress of playing footy all the time and working hard and going home to the family. I had a young family at the time and I just thought, I'm just knackered all the time, but I'll get through games and stuff like that. But it wasn't. It was just this intolerance. So I had like blind and headaches all the time. So I don't do it anymore. Like I still don't touch it now because I think I feel better for it. But yeah, it's arguably one of the biggest sort of things that nags at me all the time about my career.
See, I told you it was a good story, that.
It was.
Okay.
Thanks for bringing that up.
I mean, that's dead interesting for everyone watching, though, isn't it? That I had a little tip off viewers that Steve had that story in his locker. So thanks to you definitely won't be watching, but thanks to Flav from the Fighting Cock, which is a Spurs website and podcast. I don't think he likes Liverpool, so he's probably not watching this one. But that's been another Pro View with Steve Warnock and Copey as well. Cracker as ever. There will be more of these, so get onto them. Keep on watching the videos, keep on listening to the podcast, keep on reading the articles on the website. That's been the Pro View. Nice one.